You look like you had something to say.
No, I was just gonna move us on a little bit to the 6.83.
Yeah.
C? B?
B.
I can't
6.83 B.
Okay.
So yeah,
Numbers and letters.
I did want to rewind a little bit just to get back, kind of on topic a little bit about, because we got way off track and it was awesome.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk a little bit about the International 5. So it has a date, August 3rd through 9th. And it got me thinking, especially today, as the 6.83b patch notes came out, and I'm going to bring those up for the sake of accuracy here, but it got me thinking a little bit about how much has changed between TI4 and TI5. Brian, what are you expecting from TI5 at this point?
As far as
I mean, the meta has shifted significantly. The way Dota is played, it's a different game than it was a year ago, 6 months ago.
The death ball.
What do you expect?
15, 20-minute games.
I mean, is that good? We go to TI5. Are we going to see way longer games across 9 days or 6 days?
Yes. The answer is an unequivocal yes. With the amount of money involved and just the way the game is right now. And I'll let you go ahead and expand on this. I feel like I've monopolized all the mic time.
No, that's fine. We'll get you back on there again.
But yeah, if they're, I don't know, like I hear a lot of opinions. Community opinions, one thing. Talking to a lot of professional players, I can give my opinion as a caster, but mine's really irrelevant. It's what matters the most is what players feel and think, and what the community enjoys and likes watching. And for a lot of players, the rubber banding's still an issue. And they're beginning to. I am actually surprised. In the last 2 weeks, I've seen it talked about more openly than I have leading up to this.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is there is now less incentive to go get an advantage early, because if you mess up one time, it's just erased.
Yeah, I mean, an early advantage means that it's a bigger payout for your opponents. That's kind of terrifying, right? It means
it's a little scary. And you see some teams like, like the older Navi, where like Dendy's one of the best playmakers. Like he'll get in your face and he'll outplay you. Like that's dangerous now. Like just that style of them, you can't really succeed as well as you used to be able to in the current meta.
Yep.
I almost wonder, right, because we're going to see so many more team fights, and the meta is being adjusted accordingly to create longer, more brutal team fights that can happen more often. I mean, we'll go through the patch notes a little bit. It's just a few things that I want to talk about, but like that is going to create so many upsets in TI5, I think, especially if Valve keeps leaning into it the way they have been week after week with these month after month with these patches. I don't know, like in 8 months, what are we looking at?
So we're talking about this. Maybe I'm wrong, but it sort of feels like there's a tone around this that this is a bad thing. People at TI4 were pretty unhappy with those 15, 20-minute matches.
Well, I mean, one's as bad as the other, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And, and I've even spoken to you guys, before we came in this room last time we were together. I do notice that people that I used to know that work in the industry, not in esports directly, and as a matter of fact, most people in esports that were huge Dota hounds last year are beginning to not want to play the game as much. Like I'm having problems finding people to play Dota with me anymore. Like, and that goes all the way.
Oh, we got you, man.
Hey,
we're here for you.
Good to know. And I think that has a lot to do with it. Like whenever the opinions I trust the most are my best friends from back home, and it's it's an interesting situation. I play with them. Like one of them is a legitimate doctor. Like he goes and saves people's lives in an ER and at a hospital, and comes home and flames people on Dota with me.
Does he play support?
I play support, yes. Okay. Yeah. Well, actually, he and I are the support tandem.
He never plays healers.
But yeah, like there's him, and then a few other people, from way back when. And I know that when they talk to me, they're not talking and repeating a cultural thing, because they honestly aren't that into the culture. They only really got into Dota.
They're so removed from it.
They got into it because of me. Like I'm just their friend, and they thought it was really cool what I did for a living. So, and really supportive, awesome guys. By the way, if you see this, you're awesome. Rob, Cook, Dig, and Pop. Anyway,
shoutouts are fine.
Hey, I'll do what I do. But anyway, like whenever I talk to them, they just the early game doesn't matter as much anymore. It's all about base cracking anymore. And especially if you're playing with less than 5 outside of like ranked captains mode or some kind of tournament format, it just feels random to a lot of them. And I understand that. Like I can't tell you, and you could say this is my fault as a caster, but how many games where I feel like I could at 20, 30 minutes in, I would have an idea, a very clear idea. It's like, okay, if X team does this, this should happen. If the other team does this or allows that to happen, generally speaking, 90% of the time, this is going to be the outcome because one team outplayed the other in the first 20 or 30 minutes and put themselves in that position. I don't have that at all anymore. And like Tralf's much better Dota player than I am, professional caliber, and he has told me the same thing, that it's so much harder to predict what's going to happen. Especially with the value of base sieging now. Base sieging is what drags these games out. It's so risky going uphill and losing that team fight if you've led the whole game. Like, it is so risky.
Well, that's the whole...
Go ahead.
Like if you outplay someone for 25 minutes and then you try to go high ground, and you fail, that advantage is gone, and you
and it goes so fast.
Yeah,
so fast.
And that is really irritating. But I still think that I prefer unpredictable Dota to boring, calculated Dota.
I think there's a middle ground that could and should be found.
100%.
Because I think the issue a lot of people have, and at least that I have, and it seems like the people I play with have, is it used to feel like you could outplay your opponent in the first 20 or 30 minutes and earn a win that way. Now it feels like, oh, you outplayed your opponent. Now you have to continue to outplay them, and your margin. Like before, it felt like if you outplayed your opponent for 20 or 30 minutes, your margin for error was wider. And anymore, it feels like it either doesn't expand at all the longer the game goes if you've outplayed them for 20 or 30 minutes, or in some cases it even shrinks depending on what their composition is versus yours. And so much of it now is draft. Like the draft really, really dictates, and it always does, but it used to dictate the laning phase and what your options were. Now, in a lot of cases, it feels like the draft dictates X team has to do this. The other team just has to do this. If you draft better late game, survive. Don't give up high ground. If you draft superior mid game, you'd better win in the mid game if they have a Spectre.
Yeah, we play a lot of games.
I can't
like
tell you
that.
how much Spectre and Medusa I've played.
Yeah, Brian plays a lot, and he's like, just
live.
Just live.
Yep.
Just don't
Play
die.
tower defense.
Just
play tower
exactly.
defense.
Like, throw up whatever you need to keep those towers alive for as long as possible. I'll be AFK farming. See ya. So these updates this week with 6.83b are a lot of. Not even a lot of it, it's like less than 10 very minor updates I think are going to make a little bit of a difference now, but I think it's really going to lead into what I would assume is the New Bloom update. I think that's going to be the next big one. And I don't know, maybe we talk about New Bloom later, but generally these are the most notable updates for me. Anchor Smash radius reduced from 400 to 375. Not a ton, but just enough to nerf Tide a little bit.
I mean, he's taking
James
more
says it.
time.
He's taking hit after hit, man.
Yeah,
I mean, the
He
biggest
Poor
hit was
Tide Hunter.
the biggest hit was the map redesign.
Yeah, sorry,
You
Tide.
can't stack those
That
ancients
was the
as well.
biggest Tide nerf
Yep,
was
for sure.
Roshan's Pit. Brewmaster's Hurl Boulder damage reduced, which is good because that guy really makes me mad. I think
Yeah.
Brew is like the most boring hero in Dota for me right now. Pounce damage for Slark reduced. A bunch of math I'm not going to really worry about. Juggernaut's base armor reduced by 1. Thank you, because that dude is getting way too much play right now. Omni slash cast range reduced from 450 to 350.
The Trouf update, by the way. I don't know if you listen to D2L. Trouf complained constantly that people weren't building Blink on Jug, and now you reduce Omni slash cast range. That's a Trouf update, telling you.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
I mean, he generally does build like phase boots, drum, Sanjin Yashi,
Yeah,
something like that,
all
so he can
mobility.
get up fast. But still, that
Mask of
doesn't-
Madness early was catching on a lot.
I've
It's
heard that
huge.
recently. Is it
Huge
so you
right
get
now.
hits in during Omni Slash?
Yes.
Yep.
During Omni Slash, you get all the right clicks. With Mask of Madness, you get twice as much.
Mm-hmm.
A level 16 Jug can get like 800 to 1,000 damage extra just for right clicks during Omni Slash. It's nuts. It's unfair. Like he's sort of broken right now. He's so strong.
So you think we're gonna see Blink on Jug?
No, I mean you can build him however you want, but like that's like Blink on Jug. I feel like Juggernaut needs these nerfs, like you said. The armor hit he really needed. Blink it's kind of a delay item that'll still allow him to come online. But now with Omni Slash, it seems like such a small change, and it is. But especially at a very high level of play, 100
100
range
units
is a lot. Yeah, it's a lot to close the distance, to be in the right position, and not get stunned, and not have someone react to you. And it makes Blink. It makes the choice to go something like you said, a build like Mask of Madness, SNY, whatever else, a little bit more risky, because for a while. I shouldn't say for a while. I mean, it's always kind of been there. Blink Jug has been a thing for a while. But it's like, oh, you go Blink Jug, now you're going to play kind of a ganker style. You can still farm if you want, but you're going to be much more active, much more attack-oriented. You can initiate behind towers much easier because now you can Blink, you can Omni Slash, you can spin, and you're causing all kinds of trouble behind the tower while the rest of your team follows and dives the tower. So, but yeah, I like that. I like the fact that now you're a little bit... You need that Blink a little bit more, so it's more of a hard decision to make how early or if at all you're going to get a Blink instead of going straight up right-click build.
Magic Missile cooldown went way up. Level 1 is 13 seconds now as opposed to 10, and then it scales down per level, which is good. I feel like, she was getting Vengeful Spirit, that is, was getting way too much, way too early.
Well, the issue was in the laning phase in particular, at least that I saw, is you would have these situations where Venge would gank, she'd come out of the jungle, she'd roam. She would land, you would have a side that was pushed up a little bit too far. She'd land a Magic Missile to start the fight, then they'd run, and Magic Missile always seemed to be just off cooldown right before they got to their tower. So it's like that 3 seconds, it doesn't sound like much. And in the grand scheme, it's not going to change the entire complexion of late-game team fights, but in the laning phase, and especially her as a mover, as moving across the map, now she's a little more in line with what you expect.
Chronosphere mana cost is increased from 150, 175, 200 to 150, 225, 300, which You know, late game, come level 16, I think 300 mana versus 200 mana isn't a ton, but I think it will hopefully reduce the amount of yellow spheres you see.
Yep.
People, you know, just diving in and throwing them up. Like, making it more mana, like increasing the cost makes it more valuable.
I also haven't played Void in a while, but I'm not sure what his mana is usually sitting at by the time he grabs a refresher, if that happens. Like, does that make this not...
Yeah, by the time you get a refresher up, mana's not that big of an issue, especially if you have a support with arc boots and you're on top of that. But
yeah,
like I think you're more onto the point. Is Void is a hero that he wants to farm, he wants to gank, he wants to be active. And, you know, you don't see him run in the one position that often anymore. Usually it's, you know, an offlane kind of a thing, and it's all about map sustain. Like, can you go YOLO sphere, get a kill, and then what do you have to do? Can you then just fall back farm while your mana regens and know that you've got it back up as soon as the cooldown's off, or is it now like, okay, I use that, now I have a choice. Do I go back to base? Do I have to go? I mean, in arc boots, obviously, and items like Soul Ring, I mean, you can always be like, oh, if it's a problem, just build a Soul Ring. 800 gold, Soul Ring's kind of a good item. But yeah, I think it makes, and again, a lot of balances in Dota in general, but especially this patch, and I just read over them right before coming here. Like, whenever I look at them, it's like, okay, you're making decisions a little more hard. You're not necessarily limiting what a hero's capabilities are. You're just saying, okay, you can do this, but maybe you can't do that right after. And that's usually very, very tight balance.
Yeah, and these notes came out today as we record this, or sorry, yesterday as we record this, earlier in the week, January 13th. And there's no real theme here. There's not a ton of major shifts, but I wonder if it is kind of pointing toward a bigger update come New Bloom time. I don't know. What do you expect out of that next major patch?
Hard to call. I mean, New Bloom and, you know, all of this ties into the value of China right now to Valve and Dota 2 in general. The amount of money that's coming out of China for cosmetics is ridiculous. So New Bloom's going to be a thing, I would imagine, quite a big thing, like probably even bigger than it was last year, because that is a demographic that Valve has a ton of room to grow in.
Last year was big. There were sets for tons of new heroes, and the Year Beast.
Well, the first Arcana was last year at New Bloom, right?
Was?
No. First Arcana was Lena.
Yeah, first Arcana was Lena, then it was what's her name? Legion Commander.
Oh yeah.
Then Terrorblade, then this awful PA Arcana event.
Don't forget about Shadow Fiend.
Oh yeah,
and Techies. Techies had an Arcana.
Oh yeah, whatever. Who cares?
Who cares?
One interesting thing I want to point out, that the respawn time scale, there's different math for how respawn works.
I haven't run that math yet.
I still can't.
I have a
figure
chart
it out.
of the basically it's more significant at the early game, and at the end it's not even different. But the most significant difference is at level 1. Instead of being out for 4 seconds, you're now out for 8.8. So it's under 5 seconds difference at max.
Okay. Early on, that's
and
how does that scale up for the first 6 levels?
Here, go ahead and take a look at that right there.
Oh my God, what is this graph
Go ahead and talk.
chart
Yeah,
thing?
talk
Okay.
about
I mean, I think up until around like level 12 or so, you're around like 3-ish seconds added or something like that. I'm curious. It doesn't seem like a massive impact to me.
The only thing that comes to mind immediately, and like you said, I don't know, nothing jumps out immediately outside of jungle suiciders who go into the jungle and intentionally build towards an item, and they suicide at like level 3 intentionally, like they spend all their gold, suicide, then they can regen, then walk back into the jungle. But how big an impact's that gonna have? Like, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, 5 seconds less in a jungle is like whatever.
Yeah,
It takes
exactly.
The respawn I'm concerned with is when you get necro ulted and then you lose your lane.
Oh man,
That is getting increasingly out of control for us. Really. Like, we played against a couple
so
necros, and it's like early on, especially like at level 6, getting necro ulted, you were out for so long. It seems excessive.
yeah, it's a bit much.
Oh man,
Well, the hero's just so damn strong, and especially in like an aggressive trial lane, it's beefy, where you basically just say, okay, we're just going to put 2 beefy supports with a necro, and you better kill us, or you're going to die to Heartstopper aura.
If
like,
I play like a Spectre and I see that, I'm like, well, GG. Like,
goodbye.
Yeah.
Man, let's just start running a necro support in lane Spectre with
We need to play
easy.
Every time I lose against heroes like that, who I never play necro, by the way, or Slark.
You don't play anybody who's not named Spectre.
That's true.
Dude, Slark's so good.
Slark is so good.
You've got to play
so
Slark,
fun.
dude.
I've never
Love
played
that
him.
man.
I most recently started playing Queen of Pain mid. Pretty, she used to be there, and I don't know. I just haven't played her much, and I'm honestly started playing her because she has those new wings, and I just wanted to see what they're
They
like.
look awesome. Also, she's amazing right now.
She's just fun.
Yeah.
I like
her blink range is so huge now that you can just close any gap. You're like, oh, you're across the river. Goodbye.
Free rune control. Every single rune.
Yep.